And now to our first conversation. According to reports, Shell Nigeria has started a supply of crude oil to Nigeria's Port Harcourt refinery ahead of commencement of refining operations later this quarter. In December, the NNPCL announced the completion of turnaround maintenance and mechanical testing of phase one of the Port Harcourt refinery. The repair works cost around $1.5 billion and were scheduled in phases. Well, joining us now to analyze all of this is Mr. Jide Pratt, COO, Iona Nigeria, and country pilot manager at TradeGrid, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, so I guess, the supplies just keep coming, at this point to the refineries. We've seen Dangote Refinery, we've gotten some supply. Now the Port Harcourt Refinery is getting theirs. How are you seeing this?
For me, brilliant. That's the first thing I would say. And why do I say brilliant? This has moved us from a nation that had zero refining capacity to a nation that is moving towards self-sufficiency in terms of refining. I never thought the NNPC would pull it off, so this is a massive win for the NNPC, maybe in terms of credibility as well. And I guess what we all need to find out now is that how consistent is this going to be on a long-term basis? But putting it mildly, brilliant, good step in the right direction. Yeah,
definitely a good step. And this is coming at a time where the Dangote Refinery, they're having to import WTI, from the US. And we have good grades, here of oil. If we put up the different grades we have there, we have the Nembe grade, we have grades that are sweet, and that can give you good product. If we bring out that list there, Bonny Light is there, Agbami, Kwaibo, and Brass River. But now they're having to go for WTI. Is this because of supply issues coming from Nigeria?
So, it goes without saying, Nigeria hasn't hit her best numbers in terms of refining for quite a while. So, not refining, sorry, in terms of production.
Right.
Now, we're probably at about 1.3 million barrels a day now. Nowhere near the 2 million we should be at. So what it does mean is that the NNPC is struggling to give every refinery what they need to refine. A refinery is set up for principally one reason, and that is just to refine crude oil into distillate. It's not in doubt, and it's never been in doubt, that Nigeria has one of the best crude assets. But the point is that we cannot guarantee 2 million. So what it is that any refinery that needs to refine petroleum product will have to go and import it. They've gone for WTI because, clearly, top of my mind, they would rather have gone for Bonny Light. But if it's not available, what you're going to do is that you're going to go for the next best thing you can get. But what you do not want is your refinery to shut down. And I believe the same scenario happens with the modular refineries. They've struggled with getting supply for a while. This for me also sets a template. If the Dangote refinery can do it, then maybe the modular refineries need to try and partner and bring in cargoes on their own as well, as long as supply.
But does it make economic sense, at this time, knowing that this would involve transport? You have to transport this oil, WTI, from the US. That's going to add. So how does it, wouldn't that eat up on, the profits that they would have made?
So it's two things. Freight is something that ideally, if we looked at the dynamics of refining locally, freight reduction or freight efficiency is a positive. In this case, if he has to go abroad to bring in, if that refining goes abroad, then that freight cost will be added. However, let's not look at the fact that Nigeria is the only market for a refinery. Sub-Saharan Africa has a need. So what it does mean is that he's going to sell commercially based on his P&L. If he brings in a certain amount and lands at X, it's going to be X plus refining profit plus his margins. And then he will sell it in whatever denominations he needs to sell. But Sub-Saharan Africa is a market that needs to be fed. So I think bringing in is not a problem. He will look for where he can sell it as a refinery, and I'm sure they'll do that.
Or is he buying this, is he buying WTI because it's the cheaper one?
Maybe.
Compared to Brent, and last I heard, some of our grades actually sold at up to $80.
That's correct.
Per barrel, even though Brent wasn't even as expensive.
So leave the cost of it. Every crude has what you call an assay. So it has its inherent properties. So if I want to blend more of black products. Let's assume I want to bet bitumen, fuel oil. I'll go for heavy crude. So his choice to go for WTI must be based on the fact that if we put in X amount of WTI, these are the derivatives that we aim to want to bring out. So what it is that he's going for the best crude he can find for efficiency purposes. That's what I would say.
Right, and you know, at this point, that means with all the vagaries we see in the oil market, you know, all the fluctuations that's with prices, you know, we keep hearing that refining does not guarantee, you know, cheaper prices. That's for PMS, you know, and all the other products. So what kind of price do we have to see in the oil market to actually, even when all the, you know, refineries come on stream, to actually buy PMS cheaper?
Top of my head, I would say that you need crude oil to be about around $60 a barrel. Crude oil is not what we use directly, but what you find out is that you have gasoline prices, Eurobob and everything. So they need to come down to 600 levels. That's one aspect of it. But the point is this: if it comes down to 600 levels and the exchange rate keeps on inching towards 1,500, then likely I'm not so sure we're going to see anything. So it means the government needs to tackle not just fiscal, but fiscal and monetary policy. FDIs have to increase. There's a lot of pressure on greenback, and in my opinion, I think the 36 state governors need to sit down and how much of this naira are they changing into effect? The House of Assemblies, the legislative arms, all these need to fuse so that we have lower exchange rates and then lower crude oil prices to be able to see lower petroleum prices in Nigeria.
And talking about the FX market, you know, Dangote having to import, you know, WTI this time, that's going to put even more pressure, you know, on the FX market.
Without a doubt, but it's a simple solution, Ladi. If he gets it from the NNPC, does he need to import? And the answer is no. But if he doesn't get it, then maybe he stands, let me say, there's a bigger problem to face, shutting down that size of a refinery and having to restart it based on supplies that are a bit dodgy.
So at this point, it's not just, could it be that he's doing this because he's going to get it cheaper? That's talking about WTI. What if there's good supply, you know, of our grades of oil, but because they're expensive, he would rather go for WTI because it's cheaper?
I think there's a balancing we need to look at here. He can take as many blends as he wants. Cost is one thing. But don't forget that when he blends, he's going to blend into different grades. So you've got gasoline, you've got gas oil, you've got LPG, you've got fuel oil. So he would balance, whoever is trading for the Dangote team would balance their books. How much does Nigeria need? So if I need to take a hit in terms of cost here, maybe I can make a gain if I'm sending it somewhere else. People from other countries are also going to send crude here because they do not have refining capacity. So it means that if Angola decides that, look, I don't have enough refining capacity and I want to build, I want to sell more distillate, then Nigeria becomes a very good place to go to, even though South Africa is actually closer. So let's get it right. Different crudes, different grades, but I'm trying to get as much distillates as I can get. If I can get more profits, quote and unquote, selling within sub-Saharan Africa, then what it means is that I can, for want of a better word, pad whatever losses by buying expensive crude. I can pad that for local benefit, more or less.
All right, let's just imagine all the refineries, you know, come on stream. You know, we have the Boa refinery, that's about 200,000 barrels per day. Let's imagine they all come on stream, you know, at some point. Can Nigeria supply all these refineries oil?
I mean, my quick, direct answer is no. Ladi, we have to build from 1.3 to get to 2 million. While we're doing that, don't forget that NNPC is taking some leverage off crude oil by doing forward sales. So what it means is that in the PSCs that they have, some of that crude has been pledged to making payments. I think the Afrexim deal, if you remember, there was an Afrexim deal of about 3 billion, I can't remember top of my head. Some of that crude is going to pay back future debt. So two things must happen. First and foremost, we must curb whatever theft in terms of crude oil. We must begin to produce more. So maybe when we get to the levels of 2 million, 2.2, at that point, it's easy to say that Nigeria can actually supply whatever crude is needed for all the refineries. But as we speak today, In my opinion, no.
Because the problem before now was we could not refine.
Correct.
We were not refining, this product.
Yeah.
But now refining is coming on. Hope there's not a risk of not getting enough oil.
The risk is there. It's how we mitigate against those risks. Because this is what we're saying. If we're already pledging some of this crude oil today for future loans, then what it means is that we've leveraged that crude oil that should come out from the ground. So the people running the oil and gas sector for the country need to sit down and say, how do we get to 1.8? When? How do we get to 2.2? When? Of this 2.2, do we want to domesticate some? If the answer is yes, what portion do we need to feed the refineries? In my opinion, that straight line assessment needs to be done now so that we're hearing from when it will happen. Laddie, it has to happen. There's no two ways about it. If you're losing 400 to 450,000 barrels to theft, we can't build on that.
Because so I just hope we're not solving one problem and creating another.
That's why we're alive.
Which a problem that wasn't even there before.
No. We've never had refining capacity. So that was why the DSDP started. So we take out the crude and bring in.
Because I'm saying we never had oil production, issues before.
We did. If you remember during the Yaradua, that's why
we're an oil-producing nation.
Yes.
So we cannot be acting like an oil purchasing nation, because that's where it looks like that's where we're tending to at this point.
So maybe put it in perspective. During the Yaradua era, that was when the the Niger Delta, there was some kind of oil theft and everything. So they set up an amnesty program. So yes, we've always had crude, but we've never had optimal capacity. It was based on that we said, okay, bring in some of these people, let them guard some of the pipeline. So pipeline theft has always been there. Maybe it's right to say it's never been to the levels that we see now where so much is being stolen. So we've had crude, we have always had crude. Refining we didn't have. So back to your first question, it's a positive, it's brilliant that we can now refine.
Now we need to sort production.
Now we need to sort production. So that domestication can happen, and at the same time,
quite incredible.
Refineries don't.
Well, what are you seeing, going forward now, for refining, in Nigeria and the oil market at this time? We're seeing a lot of distortions at this time. Yesterday, oil prices were down, but today we're seeing it up after a big close for the week last week. What are you seeing?
There's some exigent factors we can't deal with. We can only predict and hope. The discussions on Gaza Strip and no Gaza Strip, that fell through the cracks. It spiked oil prices again because everybody thought there was going to be an agreement to cease fire. That hasn't happened. Locally, what can we do? We need to ramp up production. Like it goes without saying. If we ramp up productions, keep on giving the refineries that we can. Sadly, we have to import some of those. But it now means that what yields are we getting locally? So if I'm a local refinery and I import crude, what's the optimum yield I can get selling gas oil across to a neighboring state, selling PMS across to a neighboring state? Because we often forget that in terms of drafts, large vessels coming in, we have an advantage in Nigeria. Most of the smaller countries don't. So like getting a bigger vessel, break it into smaller units and sell so that I can balance those books. But what you'd also find out, in my opinion, is that a lot of the modular refineries will also start to try importation as an option if they cannot get supply.
Right, and it's quite interesting that, the U.S. actually like our grade of oil and they buy from us. So now we're seeing our refineries actually look to the U.S. Quite an interesting dynamic, I must say. Thank you so much for coming on. Jide Pratt, COO, Iona Nigeria, and Country Pilot Manager for Trade Grid.
Thanks for talking to me, Laddie. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head straight to the markets. Do stay with us. This is Business Incorporated.